This is the Lasgidi Farmer Podcast. Hi everyone, thank you for joining us on today's episode where we'll be talking about converting agricultural waste to biogas and also fertilizer. We have a very important guest in the house, Thara, who is a professional in this space. Ladies and gentlemen, looking at the world right now, we are combated with the issue of energy insecurity, the oil prices and oil availability, and also with gas itself. There's so much oil reserve, gas reserve, but exploitation is issue, conflict, restricting supply chain, causing spiking oil prices, and which is affecting the ability to access them. And even at home, here in Nigeria, we also have similar issue, I would say, good oil reserve, gas reserve and all that, but what we produce per day is still short of meeting our demands, right? So when we look at this vis-a-vis also with issue of environmental concern with fossil fuel, generating greenhouse gases, CO2, methane, and how that polluting the environment and pushing global warming and climate change, as we are seeing with our climate and also our farming system, which has been impacted, on our food production. There has to be a sort of rethink about it. So it's one of the reasons why we are having this discussion where biogas is an alternative, clean energy, where animal waste is being transformed, the CO2 being purified, and it's just biomethane, pure biomethane. And instead of this biomethane, the methane, breaking down naturally in the environment and going into the atmosphere, constituting the climate changing gases, we are putting it to use for cooking. This is a very sustainable way to actually, manage waste. And when you look at Africa itself, look at Nigeria, and look at the developing world, we have one of the highest food wastages in the world. So it makes a lot of sense that we are having this and we can meaningfully use them, convert them to valuable products. So it's the essence of this discussion, what we'll be having with Thara today, discussing extensively on it, on our journey on the road to practicality, and what are the opportunities and challenges here. Let's be very realistic here that it might appear very simple, the science of it, just gather the waste and all that, put it in the digester, generate the biomethane, have a hose connected to a gas outlet, and put your pot and all that, start cooking. The processes are easy as that. How about market? How about the competition? How about even competition with the conventional energy supply system, which is oil and gas? So these are the things that we'll be getting to discuss on today. Stay with me, while I introduce to you the guest. Thank you.
Thara is the founder and CEO of Transformers Nigeria Limited, a pioneering social enterprise based in Nigeria that specializes in converting agricultural organic waste such as animal manure and other biodegradable materials into biogas for clean, affordable cooking energy and sustainable power solution. Our work emphasizes circular economy principles, transforming waste into valuable resources to address energy poverty, reduce environmental pollution, and promote renewable alternatives to traditional fuels like LPG. Thara's background includes over a decade of experience in proposal writing, research, market entry strategies, and sustainability, with additional expertise as a circular economy specialist. She is also affiliated with Thara Biogas and Renewable Energies and has been recognized as an AI Venture Lab participant at InSeed 2025. Key milestones in Thara's journey with Transformers include securing first runner-up position in season one of Fund It Forward, a social enterprise-focused reality TV show where she won a 15 million naira prize in December 2023 to support the company's growth in waste-to-energy initiatives. The company has advanced a pilot project focused on recovering, purifying, and compressing biogas from agricultural waste, enabling longer cooking times with features like digital usage notification for users. In 2025, Transformers won the Drive 100 Africa Award in social media buzz category, powered by Tech Valley, highlighting its innovative approach to biogas production and community impact. ATA has projected that by 2035, transformers could contribute to Nigeria becoming a power gas house, potentially generating nearly 1 million tons of clean gas annually from agricultural waste. Amazing profile, this absolutely brilliant innovation, Tara. Thank you so much for what you are doing with helping to sustainably meet energy security and also positively representing women in this space. I also like to thank you for coming on to the show, to share insight and help us learn about biogas and clean energy. But before we go on, I'd like to quickly hear your thoughts on the prospect of energy biogas from agricultural waste in Nigeria and Africa. The global biogas market is currently valued over $100 billion. It was $65 billion in 2023. You see the leap, and it's projected to rise above $200 billion by 2024. Such a huge growth we have here. Africa's biogas is seeing steady growth, having nearly 120,000 plants, and Nigeria represents huge of that, about 39% of the African biogas market. However, the African biogas market constitutes just 2% of the global biogas market and even has 500 to 700 big plants when continents like Europe, Asia, North and South Americas have, you know, thousands of big plants. With these statistics that we have here, I'd like to ask you where you think we are with biogas, the prospect. Are we ready for the biogas revolution, transformation as a nation, as a continent? I'd like to ask you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tohib, for this interesting question. And I'll answer it by saying first that um, I believe in leverage. Um, and in this case, how this applies is that the government has put in some effort to create awareness and sensitization towards gas usage as an alternative fuel. However, I know the messaging has been around vehicular fuel, but nonetheless, people are now looking at gas as a viable fuel to meet their energy needs. And this is what we're leveraging off, or one of the things we're leveraging off. However, the question is targeted at agricultural waste. And I am highlighting the efforts of the government because it's still methane that is being discussed here. CNG is methane and biogas is biomethane. So, to answer the question more simply, there is a huge potential for biogas as an energy alternative, mostly because there is still a lot that has to go into um, the agricultural sector in terms of infrastructure to reduce agricultural waste and thus allowing us leverage of, again, the waste materials that would be generated as a result of this lacking infrastructure. Although we envisage that this infrastructure would be developed as we, grow as an economy. However, we are not looking to depend solely on food loss waste. Rather, we are also um, looking to encourage stronger structures that would allow us access waste materials as a resource, not as a result of lacking infrastructure. So, to close, I would say yes, there is a huge potential for biogas um, in Nigeria and Africa ultimately in the coming years and decades, even, I would say.
great to hear the exposed, but that's what I wanted to hear. I didn't want to hear any of that thing. And I'm happy that it's with government effort and chiefly led by people increasing demand for alternative energy, right? And even when the government effort is not directly on biomethane, but that the government focus on methane is helping to push the adoption and use of, you know, biomethane. So I also like that you mentioned that even when infrastructure deficit in agriculture is driving waste usage, that should not be the appropriate and sustainable way to look at it, but rather, to build stronger structures to utilize waste as a resource that would usually be generated than rely on food waste from infrastructure gap. That's brilliant. Let's talk about transformers for a moment. Your wonderful company. This is what we should have started with. Well, I just wanted to have a view of the whole prospect so we know that we are on a good start. Yeah. So, the name Transformers is brilliant. Transform means to change the nature of something. You are transforming waste, informally known as trash. Then transformers, to transform trash not only makes sense and it's easy to interpret, but also resonate. I have found that as for this, much thought also goes into your mission. It is grounded in reality of pain point and challenge of biogas, wanting to solve distribution and affordability problems. But I'd like to ask you, why did you decide to found Trash Formers in the first place? What is the drive behind it? And that keeps you going amidst the daunting challenges. I know that there are challenges, but let's set that aside for now. What is the rationale behind this whole idea concept? Thank you.
Thank you again. Yes, you have highlighted something quite interesting, which is the fact that our name resonates first, and then also um, combines everything that we do into it into a simple name. But I will not be able to take credit for the name. Well, solely not be able to take credit for the name. It came about as a result of being a part of a competition, a reality TV show in 2023, where in the final weeks, competing for a grand prize, we had the opportunity to be guided by industry experts in marketing. And that week was focused on brand marketing, I believe. And we sat with Fuel Communications, and their experts were able to bring my idea to life about how we want to be seen, how we want to communicate with our audience or potential customer base. And they came about the idea of transforming trash. So it was supposed to be trash transformers, but it was going to be a mouthful as well. So, it just became a light bulb moment for one of the experts, and he was like, "Oh, transformers," and here we are. Anyway, yeah, that's the story of transformers. And as for what motivated me, there's a history behind that. So, I started out my career in promoting eco-friendly solutions, and um, along the way, I started to learn that the motivation was not just to have alternatives to the conventional or traditional solutions used, but mostly to limit um the effect that some of these products had on the ecosystem. We are all a part of the same ecosystem anyway, we and every other organism. And I found that I also love research writing or researching. So I figured research writing was something I could explore. And I wrote a research paper that I had intended to submit, or eventually would say I had submitted to the state government ministries, particularly in Kaduna State, where I was born. and it didn't really get the reception I had anticipated. So I figured, why let something I had written with such passion die? And I picked a section of the paper I had written, which was in waste management and conversion methods, and picked out anaerobic digestion, which is biogas generation. And we're here now, 4 years, 5 years down the line, still pushing the idea because this is something that I strongly believe in, and gracefully have been guided to grow um, or develop so much knowledge for and be guided in as well. So, yeah, this is a lengthy response, but yeah, I think this classifies, yeah, a significant response to your question.
Thank you for letting us have a preview into the rich background of how the name Trash Farmers came about and the rationale behind it. I like that it is born out of wanting to impact, loving what you do, and not giving up or in, even when your presentation to the ministry wasn't acknowledged. It's often that great things start unknown, strange, and many times disregarded. So let's just go into the next question. Uh, Biogas itself, is the main derivation of digested agricultural waste, and which is said supplies clean energy. But the clean energy is often debated. Some say it contains CO2 and that the way agricultural waste is processed for biogas impacts the environment. I think there is a need for education and clarification on what biogas really is, what it constitutes, the agricultural waste, and how it is processed. Could you help us with this, to enlighten the audience? Thank you.
So, I would not bore you with technical jargon in response to this question. However, it is not as much the fault of many who try to understand the effect of CO2 in the atmosphere, in contrast to the claims of generating biogas as a clean cooking alternative, or in our case, clean cooking alternative, but generally as a fuel alternative. But I think most of the blame will go to how much emphasis has been put on CO2 as a greenhouse gas, almost neglecting, or, maybe even avoiding any conversation around methane as a greenhouse gas, which is CH4. So basically, biomethane is known to be anything between 28 to 81 times more dangerous than any other known greenhouse gas. So the argument that there is a fear that CO2 escapes into the atmosphere is one more of a lesser evil being emphasized, whereas the more dangerous culprit is being ignored. Methane being removed from the atmosphere is doing us all a better, a service, in respect to the fact that methane is a deadlier or more dangerous greenhouse gas. So, to simplify, although there is the possibility of CO2 escaping from the process of biogas purification, because in the end, to purify biogas into biomethane, you have to separate all other components that come with biogas, the moisture and other gases, and end up with solely with biomethane. But you are now converting biomethane for a better use rather than allowing it escape into the atmosphere, which is what happens every time biodegradable is left to degrade openly. Or, yeah, let's just leave it at degrade openly, right? So I believe that, you know, gives clarity as to why CO2 shouldn't really be a focus. It's like a deviation from the real issue. Um, However, not to say that it is not a valuable conversation, but in respect to greenhouse gas emissions, CH4 is a worse off greenhouse gas than CO2. Thank you.
Mm, it's important, this clarification and education you've given. In fact, many do not even know that methane is more dangerous than CO2 as a greenhouse gas And it's a fact that methane traps significantly more heat than CO2. And I like to think one reason people talk about CO2 is that the energy sector is the largest contributor to greenhouse gases emission, and which is mostly CO2. And thus CO2 is mostly associated with and talked about when global warming and climate change are alarmed. However, CO2, even when it traps lesser heat than methane, is much enduring in the atmosphere than methane itself, as it takes longer to break down, and thus CO2 with longer lifespan, accumulates in the atmosphere and have more impact on global warming and climate change. We've discussed biogas, right? And I want us to digress a bit, to talk about the challenges with biogas. Nigeria gas demand is projected to outpace supply by 3 billion cubic feet per day by 2030. This provides great opportunity for biogas, right? But also, now connecting with the clean energy controversy I mentioned in the previous question, liquefied natural gas, that's LNG, is said to be cleaner fossil fuel. In addition, we have a proven gas reserve of 2010.54 trillion cubic feet and currently produce 7.5 billion cubic feet per day of gas, and which has increased lately, for instance, by 8.58% in 2025 from 2024. So my question would be, looking at this strength of LNG, do you think biogas can compete effectively on benefits against energy and be a great substitute for environmental health? I would like to hear from you what you think the distinct importance is of biogas. Thank you.
I would like to bring to your attention a business that I have kind of tracked for a while now. It's doing its thing quietly, but it's almost always in your face. Well, here in the North Central regions, I'm not sure that this is prevalent everywhere, but I am also aware that it has its dealings mostly in Rivers State, but it's segmented across not the North Central or as scaled to the North Central regions. And this business is Greenville. Greenville is an LNG company. But I also like to highlight that there is a significant difference between LNG and CNG. LNG being liquefied natural gas and CNG being compressed natural gas. So their difference is in their storage process. With that said, um, although there is availability of natural gas, the question is how accessible is it? And then also to highlight that this business I am particularly highlighting to, or particularly, mentioning to um, make sense of the point I am getting at, is not sufficient at this stage to meet all the energy needs or access the available natural gas that is being mentioned in the question that you have asked me. With that said, this is not to undervalue the efforts of this business. Of course, that is nothing I will ever do. However, it is also to mention that I am not naive to believe that biogas is going to become a replacement for gas in Nigeria or anywhere in the world, rather a convenient alternative. And I am very conscious of this. Even in how I introduce our business, I say commercial biogas as a cost-effective alternative cooking fuel. So, um, with that highlight, I would say that LNG as well experiences structural or structural policy and other bottlenecks, although it has launched. However, this is a similar bottleneck that we experience. Why biogas has a stronger positioning and definitely would have a faster reach is because it requires lesser infrastructural and policy um, what's the change to really launch. So the market LNG companies have paved the way for biogas to be to become mainstream. But the process, procedurally and in terms of process, biogas requires so much less to launch and scale as an alternative product for the market with gas demands.
Okay, I'm now seeing it from a different point of view. Hmm. Lesser needs and cost effectiveness would make biogas a more convenient and alternative, making it competitive against LNG. It faces lesser structural and infrastructural constraints than LNG, and thus will launch and scale faster, where even the LNG structure that is well established will enable this. And thank you for that. We've been talking about challenges and infrastructure came out, and I want us to talk about one other challenge as we look at how to leverage, the agricultural waste that we have. Nigeria has the highest level of agricultural waste in Africa, over 144 million tons, comprises of food waste, crop residue, and manure. I don't really like to talk about food waste at this point. You initially spoke that we shouldn't be thinking about biogas, from food waste, infrastructural problem, but seeing that um, waste is a resource, that will always come up irrespective of whether we have food waste or not. It's something that we can leverage, right? So um, a progress utilizing this waste for energy generation could then help absorb those waste. However, the quantity, quality, and consistent availability of these feedstocks have been reported as a major constraint to biogas. Composition of this biomass varies, and with contaminants extending processing, and which consumes energy. And we still got competition for input from other industries, and on another hand we have logistics problem, to gather inputs, all this which could impact availability, consistency of feedstock, and also raise procurement costs. So I'm here wondering, if this does not impact production and retailing costs, trash farmers want to offer affordable gas, right? Is this a problem you are facing right now? I'd like to know how you are circumventing this. I want to ask, what are the strategies you're employing?
This is a very interesting question because it sheds light on um, the infrastructural and to an extent policy limitations experienced by this industry. And when we talk about the agriculture industry, of course, we are talking about crop farming and livestock farming, or crop cultivation and livestock farming, whichever terminology you prefer. Um, and there is a system I believe could work across board, which is basically identifying that on the basis that there are so many potentials for agricultural waste as a resource, it would make sense that a system is built around that. So I would give context. Say we launch and then we plan to scale. The idea would not just be scaling using what is available, but scaling by collaborating with industry experts to identify how to systemize the processes in a way that, if we were to focus on crop farmers, we would say in collaboration with seed companies or quality seed companies, this is what we are looking to negotiate to get crop farmers quality seeds, because we know that the waste material after the whole process of cultivation, harvesting, and most likely storage is concluded, the waste material left would be, used for feedstock or used as feedstock, and it would be quality feedstock. And the same can apply to livestock, whereby a system is in place. For example, I can give you an example for livestock. There is a farm that I've been privy recently to know of, a pig farm in Lagos. Okeode, please pardon my pronunciation if it's inaccurate, but it's a pig farm financed and supported by the state government that allows for pig farming in clusters. And there's an estimated 200 tons of pig waste generated daily on um, that property, or on that cluster farm. So imagine that this applied across board to all forms of livestock. We're talking poultry and cattle herding as the major or bigger um, livestock farming processes. And this just centralizes collection and also assures to an extent quality of feedstock. So this is a way to really consider that bottleneck of feedstock availability, accessibility, quality, and quantity. Of course, we are very much aware that this is the issue experienced by most people, looking to most likely uh, commercialize biogas. However, we haven't seen as many looking to run biogas as a product the way we are looking to run it. Most of our competitors are promoting biogas as a service, whereby biogas is biodigester systems are installed or constructed for their customers, and then customers would deal with the material conversion and all of that. So anyway, not to get into the detail and digress, this is my response to this very intelligent question. Thank you.
That is a very brilliant and innovative way to go about this problem of consistent type, quantity, and quality of needed feedstock. And it's similar to what we have with this contractual arrangement that is established with farmers, where farmers are engaged to grow certain crops. They have the land, they've got the experience, but still they get supported with knowledge and input, improve practices to ensure the desired quantity and quality of produce to sustain standards to market. The people engaging them, they have the standard they are trying to reach and maintain, and so that they can better service their customers, right? So with this, you are sure of the processes of the farms partnered with, they get their input from the right sources, and also their production time and cycle, and you know when to get feedstock, the type of feedstock you are getting, and the quality. This way, you are able to make plans and projections. So, having a cluster of such would no doubt provide needed feedstock. So, we have spoken about the challenge with sourcing feedstock. So, let's talk about another challenge, which is also a significant one: finance, right? And when you talk about this, I would love to also hear the innovative strategies you have been leveraging to also work your way around this. So, like I have highlighted in my opening question today, Nigeria's biogas production is largely small scale. Amongst other critical factors responsible for this is the lack of adequate financing, for infrastructure and to support producers to scale. According to reports, the initial capital cost for operational small biogas plants is in the range of $5,000 to $10,000 per kilowatt. So that is equivalent of 7 to 14 million naira. So it would even cost more for bigger plants. So I'd like to ask you what the funding space for turning waste to energy is like in Nigeria. have you had any challenge with accessing the required fund, to fully operate? What innovative financial strategies have you been leveraging against this? I'd like to hear from you. Thank you.
So you are spot on to say that one of the bottlenecks experienced um, by this industry or by promoters of biogas in the industry is finances. As many clean energy solutions, finances is a strong limitation because it's not something that has become conventional or um, traditional, so to speak, or so to say. Um, and it they kind of is a risk averseness, excuse me, to investing in the industry. However, it is not a limitation that restricts or restrains those of us who understand the vision and have the foresight of what uh clean energy or the position clean energy holds in the near future, especially for Africa. This is not to say that financing is not important, but the approach that I have applied, um, or I am applying, as I have tried various methods and seeing that on the basis that we have not yet gone to market with our product, that alone in itself um, holds back many interested parties. The approach, as I was saying, that we are employing, among others, would be one to leverage off numerous strategic partnerships that would de-risk the project for us and our future investors. Another approach would be um, considering debt financing, which I know at this stage is not one option to consider when launching or piloting a solution. However, that could be a consideration on the basis that our next fund would include the uh, information that we had raised debt financing to launch. This also just goes to highlight how much we believe in the potential of our solution, that it would scale or it would be scalable. And in the process of that, we would be able to raise funding to um, cover our debt while also scaling to meet the demand that we would obviously be proving through our pilot project. So I will leave it at this because these are two of the strongest methods that we are currently applying. Not to say that there are not other methods, but this is what we are seeing holds stronger position for us in terms of financing our project. Oh yeah, grant is one way, but it's a slower, grueling, mentally demanding way to finance projects like this. And especially because grants usually are a smaller sum than projects like this require. As you rightly highlighted, it takes a lot to get um, 1 kilowatt of electricity generated from biogas um, in scale. So imagine commercializing such a process and all of that. Anyway, I will leave it at this. Thank you.
I think one non-negotiable consideration about this particular project, biogas, or whichever project you're embarking on, innovative and seeking to make impact, right, is to actually consider in and out the sort of projects that you are doing, the financial requirement. And this is sort of going to guide one through the available sources of financing and, look at the best one for you, considering the pros and cons. You've mentioned quite some, debt financing, grants, and also partnering to spread the risks, you know, investing into the project, right? So is something really important to consider, and I'm happy that you are able to walk us through the pros and cons, for grants and what you would likely use for your home project based on your present uh, state of project and condition, right? So um, that's very good that we have to get the supply right, and getting the supply right will help us to be able to service well the demand side. We've been talking about supply for some time, right? I think it's time we digress to the demand side, to balance things up. So trash farmers want to be supplying schools and institutions. Uh, what unique proposition is the company offering, considering that there are older uh, people providing similar service? It might not be as you would have, for your own vision to serve some other places and, with different value proposition, but at least based on reports, we've got about 120,000 plants, right, as I've initially mentioned in our conversation. So I'd like to ask you that what um, makes you different from all these other plants, and what are the opportunities there for students? Your initiative is um, going or currently servicing schools, right? And quite a number of students will be enlisting and embarking on this. So I like to ask, what make it different? What are the opportunities there for students with the initiatives beyond just consumption, and generally what opportunities within the biogas production value chain idea?
I'm not sure about your data regarding 12,000 um, biogas companies. Is this global? Nonetheless, I will answer it this way. Most biogas companies focus on using purified biogas as an electricity generation alternative. One thing you have to consider is that most of these companies are situated in first world countries that have the infrastructure to pipe natural gas and provide other gas alternatives to users. So biogas is not the strongest alternative for them, and then that allows for biogas to be used, or for biogas to serve other use cases, which is something to highlight, that biogas has the potential for many use cases. In our case, it's for cooking, and in the case of most other biogas companies, it's for electricity generation. And understandably so, as I mentioned, that they are in economies that already have infrastructures in place. But in an emerging economy such as ours, with lacking infrastructure such as piping systems that would have moved natural gas from point of recovery to point of use, biogas as a cooking alternative is a stronger bet. And we are not promoting what is usual. The usual would be biogas as a service, which is promoted in many emerging economies by biogas companies that are existent, whereby a biodigester system is constructed, or a large enough biodigester system is constructed. And I'll give you examples using India and Nigeria. In India, there's a market, I cannot remember where in particular now, that converts organic waste generated on a daily in large quantities into biogas, purified into biomethane, and then used as a cooking alternative in a public kitchen. So it's used on the spot. There is no need for compression, there's no need for transfer. It's used on the spot, and also used for electricity generation. So two use cases. And then in Lagos, to the best of my knowledge, is used strictly for electricity generation, also in a market environment. So biogas as a service is what is mostly promoted. For us, we're targeting tertiary institutes because one, they are being taken off grid, and they can meet energy and thermal needs through solar electrification, but there is a gap for to meet cooking needs, which is where we are looking to fit into. We are promoting the idea of not just the idea, but then eventually, after pilot, would be the solution of biogas as a product. And this is to say that our method would involve compressing biogas into a cooking cylinder and then making it available to our customers to use on a cook stove. The difference between the traditional system or traditional cooking gas is that we require specialized cylinders and specialized cook stoves. These are all technical limitations that we have envisaged and come across in the process of testing our product. And we now have the information, or rather the knowledge, on how to overcome. And this is one way we are looking to approach the market using an already adopted process to bring our product to the market. So, what in essence differentiates us from our competitors would be that we are looking to make our product available in pre-filled cylinders, a cheaper alternative, and considering the cylinder technology to be affordable enough for the common man. There is only one business, to the best of my knowledge, in the world that has about 43 patents on biogas compression, but their cylinders are quite expensive and does not fit the reality of the common man in Nigeria, and hence why their breaking into Africa has been a bit of a hurdle for them as well. And this is why also we were able to identify that a partnership with them might not necessarily benefit our end user, and why we invested heavily in developing our own cylinder technology. So we're able to achieve an end cost for cylinders that would benefit our users. And this is a lengthier response than my other responses because it discusses our supply chain side. But yes, this is something to highlight. And as for our customer base, which I have to highlight that this is not ultimately the customer segment that we are targeting. This is a launchpad customer segment. And what I mean by this is to say it's a control space that has a demand for our product, protecting us alongside protecting our users, providing for our users an alternative that would not burn a hole in their pockets, while also allowing us test our solution in a space with lesser commitments to distribution expenses, to retail expenses and things like that. And I would say, to close, that the potential or the opportunities for our customer base, who in this case are institutions, tertiary institute students, would be an opportunity to actually promote the product themselves. So there is an opening for retail, and it's a simplified model of distribution that just includes a swap station that would hold our pre-filled cylinders and allow for customers to easily walk up to these stores, swap stores, if you will, and pick up a pre-filled cylinder, and also return an empty cylinder to pick up a new pre-filled cylinder. So it's a loop system where you come pick up a pre-filled cylinder. Upon emptying, you return the emptied cylinder and pick up a new pre-filled cylinder. So it's a simplified process, and we will definitely need the workforce for that model of distribution to be efficient. And who better to consider than the students themselves, and this also opens them up to the opportunity for entrepreneurship, while also allowing them test out their ability for salesmanship without committing much finances on their end. So it's a win-win for everyone, in my opinion.
Wow, that was lengthy and is a good one. You put a lot of work into that, and I really took my time, to listen to every bit of it, to also learn. And I've learned a lot while you're, you know, dishing out the knowledge, and um, get to know the differences in market for biogas in the developed world, and developing and emerging economies, being led by infrastructure and purchasing power, the developed world, where biogas is being rendered as a service, and also in emerging and developing markets rendered as a product, although we are still seen as service, right? But basically product. So I like to clarify what you began with, the number of biogas plants in Nigeria, which, I mentioned 120,000. The 120,000 I mentioned is for the continent itself, Africa. But um, Nigeria constitutes a huge chunk of that. I don't know precisely the number of biogas plant, but as we have come to know that Nigeria constitutes about 40% of that market. So we expect that there's quite a number of small biogas plants in Africa, right? So I like that you are actually playing in a much controlled market, where you are able to um, service the customers, but also able to tweak around, with your services, your products, and and try to work things out so that it is mutually beneficial to you as a service provider, and the consumer, which are the students. And I like that is not your market is not as regular as what you have, for others, just providing cooking gas for people, electricity for the general public, but that you are able to consider and know that the university is being taken off grid, and you're exploiting that space, since you know that they are not immediately able to meet their energy demand, with infrastructure, inbuilt infrastructure, or even exploiting the solar part. And I also like, that your unique value proposition, is seeking to reinvent what it means to get gas, with the cylinders, right? Used to be bulky, and you have to keep bringing your cylinder, fill it, and you are offering a service of cylinder replacement, right? Whereby you bring your empty cylinder, and they take a new pre-filled cylinder, and so that is very good. And also like that you are considering affordability, looking at the nature of the market here, purchasing power, and the category of people you are dealing with, students with um not too big disposable income, but they still have this sort of strong demand. And not just about having strong demand, either there's the avenue for participation, there's opportunity for students, to participate in the marketing of these products, and delivering of the services at the stations where the pre-filled cylinder are being, taken by customers. So that's a really, really good one. So we are coming gradually to the end of the discussion, right? And it's been a very interesting discussion thus far. You've been really, really on point, and I can't get enough of you. Thank you so much for the insight. So I proceed with the next question. I'm wondering how Transformers is intending to leverage the government plan, to have tertiary institutions off grid and independently generate their own power, and the increasing energy diversification with CNG support. You initially mentioned this in your answer. So I want to know about this and also what you think about the government need, what you think the government need to do more to support biogas producers, enable their skill and also ensure emergence of more biogas producers. I know we discussed about this initially, where you mentioned that government has been helpful to pushing biogas, right? Which is basically biomethane. But basically, it's not necessarily that they are pushing biomethane, but they are pushing uh, methane and CNG, and is helping for biomethane and biogas, right? So let's hear from you.
In my humble opinion, the government needs to consider how to promote um, private public partnerships from their side, not always from the private side. And I'll explain this by saying um, there are a lot of research facilities, and there's a lot of research also going on within institutions that have not made it to the commercial market. um the idea here for me is, why not leverage of existing research, bring together research experts and private early stage businesses such as mine looking to commercialize a solution. This in a way would de-risk the investment for the business, because there is technical expertise, there is a control space to test out the solution most of the time, and then also open up the opportunity for joint earnings for by the government institute and then the private institute, which hence explains why it is a PPP. So in simplified English, this is just to say that the government should consider looking at early stage solutions, local solutions like ours, and build it through research partnerships rather than reaching out to international solutions that invested in research and got to the finished solution that they are looking out to bring in for consumption, when we can do the same thing here more efficiently, because there has been research already done for most of these solutions, just not just not at a commercial scale yet. So yeah, that's my response.
Absolutely, you're spot on. And I do believe that we should leverage local solution instead of seeking international solution. And it helps for cost effectiveness and also local adaptation, right? Because it's adapted to peculiar um, settings and needs, right? And problems, and it makes it the solution more effective to our locality, right? And the government obviously have to, you know, put the ball rolling, and establishing partnership with the private sector, at the university, school level, and there are tons of researchers, like you've said, many of them being discarded, not seeing the light. And, if we could actually look into them, adapt them, adopt them, leverage them to actually, you know, um, cost effectively bring up solutions, that enables the delivery, sustainable delivery of this biogas, uh, right? So I go in line with you. So I move on to the penultimate question. I want to ask, we've been talking about challenges, right? Challenges. We've been talking about it in the general space, but we haven't, talk about it for trash farmers, except when we talk about financing, right? But I want you to go deeper, asking you that how have you been able to maintain the team's motivation and presence with the operating environment and capital challenges, all teams, all ideas, projects, during the establishing phase, and having this sort of challenge fund, also seeking to motivate team where things are not going as they should, and where resources you are expecting are not coming in due time. How do you um, stay to maintain the motivations of your team members, of your workers? Okay, that this is a very big boat bet. This is a company to be with, and there is light at the end of the tunnel. I like to ask you that what have you learned from these, and what you advise in this regard to anyone pursuing similar ambition, with some of these challenges I face. Thank you.
Biggest challenge. Well, I would say financing and technical expertise. However, for technical expertise, you know, we have found a way around that. Not easy, not easily, but it's being done. It's being done. But for financials, we're still working around that limitation. In response to what or how does the team stay motivated? Um, I consider myself a student of life, and I extend this mindset to the team, to say that we're going to constantly have to be learning and evolving, because this is an industry that, and a time, not just an industry, but then also a time that requires for constant evolving, constant learning and relearning, unlearning, that if that applies here. And just, preparing for the market before it even comes. So one of the ways I keep us motivated is by trying as much as possible to apply to as many opportunities as available, even those that we might not get funding from. Although mostly we are targeting funding, but it's also to be educated, to be knowledge, to acquire knowledge about the industry, and about entrepreneurship, about structures and system building, about team management, and um, workplace culture, things that really, would be the driving force, or the structural foundation on which we intend to build transformers. So these are the things that I believe keep us motivated. But on the side, I also use transformers as a circular economy company, to source um, circular economy based projects, small projects in our case, focusing on sourcing and what's that term I'm looking for now? Um, Negotiating pricing, quality assessment for recycled PET bottles, for clients, and that brings in some money some of the time, which helps us, stay afloat as a team and meet some of our needs, to keep us going.
That's insightful. I see that you incorporate both material and non-material motivation, being heavy on capacity building, soft skills, right? You are learning, you are stretching, you are expanding, you are having this intellectual satisfaction, preparing yourself for opportunity, hungry, and ready to pounce on opportunities to leverage it effectively. And I also like that you guys are applying for as much opportunity as possible. You understand that a lot of them will come true, but when you um throw out scatter shots, although it's still not scattered, it's been strategic as well. You eventually, you know, get something. So that's a very good way to go about it. So we have come to the final question. You know, let's focus on the vision for trash farmers, right? And as the CEO and the founder, I like to ask you, what your vision for trash farmers will be by 2030. 2030 is a year many companies that are having this audacious target against, that in 5 years' time, this is what we want to achieve. This is what we should have achieved. So I'm asking you, you know, I know that you are a good go-getter, you're audacious, you are brave and all that, and you always stay prepared. So I like to ask you, what do you hope to achieve by then, 2030? How many buyers? Is it revenue? Is it impact? I like to hear from you.
The demand for clean energy is becoming really crazy globally. And the target for this demand to be met is Africa. It is not something everybody sees, but this is the reality. Um, the space for clean energy generation is not really as much or as wide in Europe or and other first world continents or countries, rather, pardon me, countries. Um, However, there is such a massive potential for clean energy in Africa. And for us, our 5 year projection is meeting the energy needs of over 400,000 users of our excuse me, our product, um, attaining over $70 million in annual recurring revenue, um, being able to have tested the market to see the potentials for other use cases for biogas outside of it, of promoting it as a cooking alternative. Um, Having supported the structural or integration of livestock farming, the structural integration of livestock farming um, for smallholder farmers and extending the same system to agro crop farming. Um, I would say, yeah, the vision is sounding conservative, but knowing that um, this is something that requires slow adoption and patience, it is best to be conservative. So, this is my response. And I hope that this closes out our conversation efficiently, which I am very glad to be a part of. And I really do hope that this changes a lot of minds or enlightens a lot of people and prepare us all for the shift because it's coming. The only thing now is who would be on the wave or on the train. And for us, quality comes first. So we are highly and or heavily focused on product quality and um, you know customer experience through our products, not just having something out there. And this is a big uh, drive for us. So, with as a company, as a team. With all of that said, I thank you again for bringing me onto this show and asking very important questions that require um, you know, or that highlight or inform, right? Let's use that, inform the listeners on all aspects of biogas, its potential, and its use case in this, in particular, to what we're promoting without exhausting the audience. All right.
Thank you so much. We have come to the end of the question and answer session. And, it's been a very interesting conversation so far. Is rigorous, and I know, and this is what every speakers that have come to the show, what they face. The show tests your intellectual rigor, capacity, depth, breadth, and it helps to actually prove that you are grounded in the field and know what you are doing, and by that you are able to properly inform the audience. And I'm happy that this is the case with you, Tara. Absolutely. You've been on your A game tonight. Thank you so much. We've learned a lot, and I personally, and I see that, with what I've learned, and the audience as well, they should be able to embark on, you know, the biogas space, based on what you've told us that there's prospect in the space with increasing demand for clean energy, and that's great, energy to help with environmental health, and also alternative energy that helps with disposable income and purchasing power, right? So this is really great, and I hope, like that, you've helped us to clarify some of the assumption, misconception, falsehood, misinformation, disinformation, right? And especially with composition of biogas. I'm talking about during the purification process, removing CO2, and helping us to understand that methane is even more dangerous than CO2, and that you know biogas is actually helping us to remove methane and use it to convert it for valuable use, right? Cooking, electricity, and all that. And I also like that you change our perspective about how we see waste, and building infrastructure to actually harness it. That we shouldn't be looking at biogas converting waste from the point of, okay, there will be food waste, and we have to build infrastructure to curb food waste, right? No, that's not the appropriate approach, but to actually see that waste is a resource, right? Agricultural waste always comes up. It's not just about food waste. We have the animal waste, you have the manure, cow dung, crop residues, a lot of that, that could be actually leveled without having to wait for, wastages, right? And, I like that you were able to help us um, see some of these challenges, with financing, and, with infrastructure as well, how we can overcome them, sourcing quality feeds, the right quantity of feedstock, to power this biogas operation, and, yield the expected output, right? Some of the ways that you've been able to go about it, and also, addressing the government itself, what they can do to actually catalyze revolution, transformation in this space. You mentioned that they should boost, um, create a roadmap, and also support public-private partnership. And it doesn't have to be from international cooperation, collaboration, a partnership. And there is a way to actually, do that at local level in our schools and universities with local researchers, experts, that know about the state of things in, our region, locality, and are able to come up with sustainable, cost-effective, and adaptive solutions, that best fit our needs, pain points, problems, worries, right? Our condition. And also, thank you for taking me through what makes your company unique, your unique value proposition, operating in a controlled market that allows you to service customers at affordable rate, and also to be able to experiment without being under pressure, right? And I like that you take in also opportunities for students, to participate in the whole approach, as marketing, and also that you consider the technology of your can apparatus, right? Your cylinder, wanting it to offer, um, to relieve pain points for customers, ensure their productivity for users, not the traditional cans you come, you fill and take away, but you bring your empty can and take away refilled cylinders and drop the used cylinders, right? So that's actually a very good one. And I also love, how you explained how you keep to motivate your staff, despite the growing phase you are, and having challenges with funds, that, motivating your team, with material and non-material motivation strategies, measures.
That's really great. And you've said what you want your company to achieve by 5 years. Right now, we are looking forward to that, expecting that uh, with this zeal that you have, tenacity, audacity, hardworking, and your team as well, well-rounded and willing to go all in hard, that this is achievable, right? So, thank you for coming to the show. We remain the trusted uh, agricultural communication platform, for bringing significant, very in-depth conversation, that enlighten the public. I hope that, you frequent our page, you tell others, and we have you in the future for more beneficial, insightful, engaging, interesting, and beneficial conversation. Thank you so much.